All right, this is going to be the epilogue, part three, and the final parts when it comes down to kind of going deeper into the Blake Griffin situation, down to LeBron James' legacy, and let alone here more on a two-dimensional basis since we're on First Take, which they're an entertainment show for a reason. So I'll play along. But the Brooklyn Nets have been one of the hottest teams in the NBA for the past month or so, alongside with the Philadelphia 76ers and the Utah Jazz. But as we're looking within this team with the Brooklyn Nets, they pretty much won 8 out of the last 9 games. Kyrie Irving and James Harden have been playing electric. And there was questions if those two could coexist. And they've sacrificed some of their team roles. They've handled this on a three-dimensional basis by not getting in their feelings and understanding this season and next season are expectations to win an NBA championship. So as Kevin Durant has been more the mediator between these two players, they've worked together alongside pretty smoothly for them to win these ball games. Kyrie Irving accepting his role to play more off ball and giving the responsibility to James Harden, taking on that point guard responsibility and averaging the most assists in the league as of today. And this has elevated the team to a new dimension. These has sacrifices, user roles, and these teammates have now increased their chemistry, which is a great start by adding in that big three together, which there's always been questions about egos and yada yada. So the Brooklyn Nets are a half game behind the Philadelphia 76ers, sitting at the second seed in the East. Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons are out a couple games due to COVID protocols as they missed the All-Star game. So this is going to lead even more of a good way for the Brooklyn Nets to continue. Not only by that, but they did obtain Blake Griffin from free agency. And this fills their backup center holes. You did have Jeff Green taking on those responsibilities. He can go back to his traditional 4 and still play 5 from time to time. But even though Blake Griffin is not an ideal defensive anchor for them, since he is 6'9", 31 years of age, has not dunked the basketball in over 2 seasons, and has been on a digression, they understand, and he understands as well, why he chose the Brooklyn Nets. They have veterans. They have a 3-headed monster with star players of Kyrie, KD, James Harden, and he can take on that responsibility of playing for a championship, playing for a contender, and even that it comes down to coming off the bench, which Steve Nash has stated that is the expectations and the execution for them to go alongside with. So expect a Dwight Howard 2.0 fill when it comes to Blake Griffin. And this is a good take for him. There wasn't many teams he could have chose that would have been an ideal fit. The Lakers were not in that picture. The Lakers need a JaVale McGee, Hassan Whiteside, Boogie Cousins, or a Andre Drummond type basis. Boogie Cousins more on the last resort, but Blake Griffin could not fill in that 5 hole. There's really no other teams as well. So the Nets are doing good. They're around 8 to 9 deep. Still expect Andre Drummond or another big name defensive anchor to sign with the Nets. I mean, Andre Drummond will be bought out, looks like so. Same thing with Hassan Whiteside with the Sacramento Kings, and as well as with possibly JaVale McGee. So if anything, the Lakers will be getting a flip-flop with the Nets on any of these players. So the Nets are in a great position, trending upwards. And we'll see how Stephen A. and Max Kellerman have their takes on this move.
Nets are keeping it very interesting this season, now adding 6-time All-Star forward Blake Griffin to the squad. According to Adrian Wojnarowski, Brooklyn used one of its veteran minimum contract slots to sign Griffin, who will likely be used as a small ball center off the bench. Not only is he joining the Big Three on a quest for a title, but also former Clippers teammate DeAndre Jordan. So, Max, what do you think? Will Griffin have a little, big, or no impact, there you go, on the team this year?
Yeah, he's going to have a big impact. I mean, whenever you have DeAndre Jordan, who has been suspect for defensively and a quote-unquote defensive anchor starting center, that leaves a position to where Blake Griffin could potentially be the starting center in the future, but they want to take step-by-step, baby steps into this. And Jeff Green's the other backup center, so Blake Griffin has a great opportunity not only to be a veteran leader and to take on this role, but besides from that, he can dominate when it comes to Brooklyn, not only offensively, but a defensive presence, his energizer bunny-ness. He has the energy. He does have the cachet and swag. That's what the Brooklyn Nets have always fed off with. Cachet, swag, street ball, ISO. Blake Griffin will play his role perfectly. You could be seeing some lobs with the pick and roll, and that's going to be an ideal fit with him and Kyrie, let alone with James Harden. So He's going to have a big impact, especially later in the playoffs, which they're really going to need him for. Same thing we saw with Dwight Howard last season. Huge impact in the Western Conference Finals against the Denver Nuggets going against Nikola Jokic. But if we're going to see Philadelphia and Brooklyn in the conference finals, which is expected, Brooklyn's going to definitely need Andre Drummond, Hassan Whiteside, or JaVale McGee, because with Joel Embiid going to give you 30 a night in a defensive dominant presence, especially offensively, they're going to need another big. But Blake Griffin will have a big impact.
A small impact. And I'll say so giving him the benefit of the doubt, thinking that he'll be very motivated to be the best version of himself on this Brooklyn team. But I take no pleasure in saying this. I remember when Blake broke into the league, and I was out in L.A. doing afternoon drive on ESPN radio, and it's a Lakers station, but you couldn't ignore what was happening with the Clippers. Blake Griffin looked like he had a chance to be one of the greatest power forwards who ever lived. He was he was something different athletically. But it didn't quite pan out that way. He was an all-star, not an MVP. It didn't quite pan out that way. And after he got injured, he hasn't been the same. Guys, you know the last time Blake Griffin dunked? Jalen Rose pointed this out a month ago or something like that.
Yeah, and dunked in 2 years.
2 years? It's been 2 years since he dunked the basketball. So you take that away from Blake, and what do you have? He's not really a defender, and he's just not built like a defender. You know, defenders aren't the barrel-chested guys. They're like the lanky, long-armed dudes who can play defense, usually, right? He's not built like a defender, and he's not a defender, really. Not a shot blocker, not a rim protector. He's not a shooter. He takes 6 threes a game. He hits under 32% of them. So what is it exactly that Blake now does that's additive, right? How does he positively affect the team? I'm willing to believe, given the amount of time he hung around as an all-star and given his basketball savvy at this point in his career, that a fully motivated Blake Griffin, as a center maybe in a small ball lineup, that idea has been floated, will have some marginal positive value. But Stephen A., I think that's what it is. He's Blake in name only at this point.
I think you're sleeping.
Yeah, and this is the same thing people said when it came to Dwight Howard and Carmelo Anthony. They said they were washed. They need to be out of the league. They're done with. And that was asinine. And same thing they're saying with Blake Griffin after this little settle, after his injury in a couple games with his 4th season with the Detroit Pistons. Playing with a contender, playing with this big three. He's going to have a good role with Steve Nash and the crew. Inside, he does not need to be more an offensive threat. Defensively, they will use him for a small ball lineup, which Jeff Green's pretty much 6'9", running a 5 either ways. Blake Griffin can run that same type of basis. And with the second unit, you can play him with Kyrie Irving from time to time. So this leaves more. He can still have an offensive opportunity with the Brooklyn Nets since he will be coming off the bench. And usually with the second unit in the second quarter, you're pretty much going to see Kyrie with Blake Griffin anyways. So he still will have his couple opportunities to have a couple touches offensively, something Dwight Howard couldn't do last season. So Blake Griffin's still young enough, being 31 with the cachet. He's going to be an energizer bunny. He will also have that swagger to the foundation. And, I mean, pretty simple when it comes down to it. Blake Griffin also will be able to have more opportunities on the pick and roll, alley-oops. And not only within that, but on the defensive presence as well.
You're sleeping on what he can bring to the table, but it's understandable. As you know, listen. From time to time, I do have to teach you the game of basketball. I understand this stuff, Max. So let me school you about something here, Max.
Stephen Naismith.
That's Stephen Naismith. There you go. Here's the deal. Seriously, Blake Griffin is not a number 1 option. He's not a number 2 option. Here's the beauty. He doesn't even have to be a number 4 option or Brooklyn. You're forgetting that the people that you play with, what you're surrounded by, has a profound impact on how you can perform when you're not asked to do but so much any longer. When I think about Blake Griffin's, athleticism since his injuries, it's dissipated to some degree. There's no question about it. But I think primarily the issue in Detroit, was the fact that he didn't want to be there. He knew that it was a team going nowhere. He knew that.
Thank you. And I'm going to let it get back to him in a second. But Blake Griffin mentally was not there with Detroit. Your 4th season in that bum town, in that bum franchise. And with injury, yeah, of course you're not going to be performing as well. Your goals is to make the playoffs, but let alone you went out of there, if anything. Blake Griffin, with the team he picked, You're going to see a full potential when it comes to him. A whole resurgent 180. It's pretty simple. Same thing when it came to Dwight Howard.
We're in rebuilding mode. He never wanted to leave. He never wanted to depart LA, which is why he ran off instead of shaking hands with Steve Ballmer when he came back for a visit. He never wanted to leave. He liked being in LA or Detroit, where you want to be. I know where I want to be. So we understand.
Nothing against Detroit. Love me some Detroit.
We love the city, but come on now. Let's just be real with it. And so I'm just talking strictly weather. And so as a result of that, you look at it from that perspective, he wasn't that interested. Max, the guy has played in 38 games in like 19 of the last 20 months or so. 38 games.
Yeah.
He hasn't been playing. All right. The last time we saw him in a full season, he was averaging 24 and a half points a game. When I think about that, and I think about him, reuniting with DeAndre Jordan, and I think about James Harden and Kyrie, and then you add KD to the mix. Excuse me, you got to worry about those three. I'm sorry, Blake Griffin is no scrub. He's not somebody that you can sit up there and leave alone, and he's not somebody that you can easily guard one-on-one. And because you'll have to prioritize focusing on the other three when it really, really counts, that's from a basketball perspective. Then you've got the motivational element that we can't ignore. Then you got the fact that he's reunited with his teammate in DeAndre Jordan. All of those things coming together, and Brooklyn desperately needed another big body, because all you really had was DeAndre Jordan and obviously shipping Jared Allen off to Cleveland. So you got
Jeff Green ain't it?
And
Yeah.
Jeff Green.
No, but
Well, Jeff Green being 6'9" and being a 3 and 4 most of his career, being a 5 in this new day and age, he can play the 5. He can do it. Same thing like PJ Tucker, but this is going to allow Jeff Green to play more of a 4, and at a 5, Blake Griffin can take on those responsibilities. It's not going to be too much banking when it comes there. When it comes to the playoffs, I fully expect Andre Drummond or Hassan Whiteside to be on the Brooklyn Nets roster anyways. So the Nets are fine where they're at.
saying not as a big body.
Not as a big body, but Jeff Green can ball. But again, Blake Griffin enables you to go small. Let me ask you this question. If you had James Harden, Kyrie Irving, KD on the court with Jeff Green and Blake Griffin to go small, that's nothing to sneeze at.
Or Joe Harris.
That's right, or Joe Harris. You see what I'm saying? So in other words, Blake Griffin can work with this group. Yeah. If he were going someplace else.
Blake Griffin can play somewhat of a Draymond Green if he really wanted to in that small ball lineup. Of course, he would work more on his assist and offensive opportunities for his teammates, but Blake Griffin can do that. He understands how to change his role, his cachet, his game of play. These players are smart out there. When their ego goes down, we start to see more opportunities for them in a different shed of light. And that's usually when these players are coming into their early 30s. We're seeing that with Blake Griffin as of right now. Most of these star players don't realize that until their early 30s.
Where he was asked to be a number 1 or 2 option, I would have a problem with it. I would side with you. But him being in Brooklyn, I think it's one of the perfect landing spots. I think he helps elevate them, and I think he elevates them significantly because he gives you an extra body that can do some things, not on a night-in, night-out basis, but I'm talking about sporadically. Can Blake Griffin go out there and give you 20 or 30? Yes, he can.
I'm saying.
Now, if you're the Brooklyn Nets going against the LA Lakers in the finals, who's going to stop Anthony Davis? The Nets are going to need another defensive anchor. Same thing with the Lakers on their side, but Blake Griffin's not going to get it done with against Anthony Davis alongside on there. So that's the main thing the Nets need to focus on, Andre Drummond or Whiteside. I fully expect one of the two.
Yes, but that's a small difference. Like
it's not a small difference when you consider their roster.
Joe harris is, whether he's starting or however you're going to do it, in crunch time, Joe Harris should be on the floor. He's the best shooter on the team, amazingly, right? In fact, in our morning meeting when we were talking about, do they have a big 4, I was stumped. I was like, wait, are people considering Joe Harris part of the big 4? Because that's how
No.
I've viewed Blake Griffin the last couple of years. I think of Sean Kemp. I think of Larry Johnson. These were, like Blake Griffin, they were once a certain kind of player, and they were all-stars. And they had to reinvent themselves as their careers went on due to injury, age, size, whatever.
Primarily when Larry Johnson is back.
Yeah, right. And they did it Larry Johnson was one of the highest IQ players I've ever seen on the Knicks.
Absolutely.
But he couldn't jump anymore. He wasn't as good as he was, but he reinvented himself.
But he was still formidable.
Sean Kemp, too, got down in the post, wasn't like high-flying anymore.
Listen, the Nets could just use Blake Griffin as a body. They won't need a high performance from him anyways. They just need another body. Whenever you have DeAndre Jordan at the 5, who is sketchy as can be to be a starting 5 anyways, Coming off the bench is Jeff Green, who's mostly a traditional four. And that's pretty much it. Claxton's not going to get minutes. So you just need another body out there to play 15 to 20 minutes a night. Blake Griffin can do that at his worst. And you're fine if you're the Nets, because offensively, you have three of the best scorers in the league with Kyrie, KD, and Harden.
But his game was predicated on that. That was never the case with Larry Johnson.
But
Larry Johnson wasn't a skywalker when he was at UNLV.
But he could jump. He could jump after the back.
He was massive.
All right,
he was a man amongst boys. But he wasn't a jumper.
Without getting bogged down in the Larry Johnson
Stacey Augmon and Anderson Hunt were the jumpers, not him. But go
What
ahead.
I'm saying is, there are guys who reinvented themselves. I don't know that Blake can do that on a level to make him a big deal.
I think he has to.
But who he's replacing in this lineup really, or when he's on the floor, that's really Jeff Green. What you're really asking is, what premium does this version of Blake Griffin in a small ball lineup playing the five give you over Jeff Green?
All right. I fully expect Blake Griffin to average around 10 to 13 points a night with the Brooklyn Nets. His impact can be more on off the court, being team chemistry, a veteran-type presence in the locker room. And when he's on the court, he's going to give you some good highlights, good moments. But he's going to be a body out there that they need for a five, another big man, in which he can play the role. So the Brooklyn Nets are good as acquiring within him. They will be representing the Eastern Conference, and the rest is history from there.